Hello friends, welcome back to the channel. In this episode, we'll make some muffuletta. It is a Sicilian bread, great for making giant sandwiches like this. And who doesn't love a giant sandwich? This thing could feed 4 people. I've got some ham, mortadella, pesto, olives, salad leaves, cheese, tomatoes. This thing is loaded. Well, of course you could fill it with whatever you like. And muffaletta is the name of the bread originally, but there is also a sandwich that goes by the same name, which contains more or less the same fillings that I've just listed. And the bread is delicious, it's super soft and fluffy, and it has a distinct flavour because it's fermented for a long time. You'll find a full recipe with all the details, with metric and imperial units, down in the description box. So let's see what equipment we need. We'll need a tray with some non-stick paper, a bowl, scales, a dough scraper, a temperature probe, and a brush. Now on to the ingredients. We'll need some strong white bread flour, water, yeast, salt, some oil. Then we'll need an egg yolk mixed with 1 teaspoon of milk for the glaze. Alright, let's begin. So my kitchen is around 24 degrees Celsius, so my water to be around 9 degrees. This bread is made with a pre-ferment called the Poolish. To make the Poolish, we'll mix part of the total water and part of the total flour with just a pinch of yeast, and we'll leave it to ferment overnight. This will enhance the flavour of the bread, give it a distinct crust and a delicious chewy interior. And all we need to do is mix the ingredients together, cover them up and leave them to ferment. It's the next day and we can start making our dough. Get your bowl, add the water, and then add the pre-ferment. It should be nice and bubbly, puffed up, but not runny. If you can pour it out of your jar, it means it's over fermented. But this one looks just about right. So we'll add the rest of the yeast, the salt, the oil, and then give it all a good mix. We are using a very small amount of yeast because we want to ferment this bread for a long time. Right, now let's add the last ingredient, the flour. Now grab your scraper and mix until you don't see any more dry flour. And if the scraper doesn't do the job, continue on by hand. To avoid making a mess on your table, mix the dough in the bowl until it's one single piece, and only then tip it out and start kneading it. This is my preferred kneading method. What I like to do is press down and forwards with the heel of my right hand, and then using the fingers of my left hand I fold the piece of dough under the heel of my right hand, then turn and repeat. It will be a little bit sticky to begin with, but just keep working it, it will get less and less sticky as you go on. And if it's really sticking to your table and to your hands, just grab your scraper and scrape it all together. You can also scrape it off your hands and add it back into the dough. And it goes without saying that your hands should be clean before you even attempt this. So just scrape it all up and keep working it. The whole process should not take more than 5 to 7 minutes. And once your dough has become nice and smooth, and it's nice and stretchy, it's ready to ferment. It might still be a bit sticky, but don't worry about that. Get it in a bowl and always take the temperature. 24 to 25 degrees Celsius is just about right for this. Now let's cover it up and leave it to ferment. We'll leave it for 1 hour. Obviously if your dough is warmer, it will take less time. If it's cooler, it will take longer. And after the first proof, we want to fold it. Folding is quite beneficial for a dough. This process will achieve 3 things. We'll degas the dough, we'll create extra layers in the gluten structure, and we'll equalize the temperature throughout the dough. To perform a fold, place your dough out on the table, smooth side pointing down, flatten it out, then fold the edge over the middle, going around in a circle until you reach the point where you started, and you have a nice tight ball. Then you can flip it smooth side up again, tighten it against the table. Once you feel that it's nice and tight, pick it up, pinch together the seam at the bottom, and back in the bowl it goes. And it's as simple as that. Now we cover it up again, we'll leave it to ferment for 1 more hour. And as I mentioned earlier, we're using a small amount of yeast, so this dough will take quite a while. So if you don't see it puffing up rapidly, that's fine. We actually want to slow rise this time. And 2 hours later, we can shape our loaf. And the shaping is such a simple process, this is one of the easiest breads to make. Just dust your dough lightly with flour. And you just want a light dusting, don't use too much flour. It's always easier to add more than to take off. And all you want to do is flatten the dough out using your fingers. You want it to be a round disc, around 1 inch thick. Now place it on a tray lined with parchment paper, and it's ready to go in the fridge for an overnight fermentation. And yes, it's a 3-day process to make this bread, but the actual hands-on time is very minimal. There's one more thing we need to do before it goes in the fridge. Grab a couple of sheets of cling film Add a drop of oil and rub it all over. This will prevent it from sticking to the dough. Now cover the bread up, make sure the cling film's touching. If it's not, it might form a dry crust in places, and you don't want that. Now we can pop it in the fridge and forget about it for 18 to 24 hours. And this gives us great flexibility of when to bake. Refrigerating the dough really slows the fermentation down. 1 hour before you want to bake, preheat your oven to 160 degrees Celsius with a fan on. Then get your muffuletta out the fridge, uncover it. There's one more step we need to do before baking. You can see it's fermented nicely, it's full of air. Now grab your egg yolk and milk glaze and brush it all over. And to give it an extra nice crust, brush it once, let it dry for 5 minutes, and then brush it once more. And finally, after all that brushing, we need to sprinkle it with sesame seeds all over, which for some reason I forgot to mention at the beginning of the video. And don't be shy with the seeds, sprinkle them all over. And you can also lightly press them in using the palm of your hand to really make them stick. So the oven's been preheated, the bread's been glazed and sprinkled with seeds. Now we can get it in to bake. It shouldn't take more than 30 minutes. It should be puffed up and beautifully golden brown. And that's the giant sandwich bread, as easy as that. It takes a long time, but it's very easy to make. And as always, if you have any questions or suggestions, write them down in comments. If you haven't subscribed already, consider subscribing. I make bread baking videos every Wednesday and Sunday. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.